I am Dr. Janvi Shah. I've worked for 15 years in an asset-intensive organizations. Now, what do I mean by asset-intensive organizations? Organizations that are infrastructure organizations that own, operate, maintain any sort of infrastructure. Predominantly, I've worked within the highway space and transportation space, but I've also had the opportunity to advise ports in UK, the UK Port Authority, the Ministry of Justice, who own and they also operate and maintain prisons. They obtain courts, tribunals. I've also had the opportunity to run a transformation program for Network Rail. National, before it was called Network Rail, now National Rail, and so on. So have and Cadent Gas organization, which has lots of utility network within the country. So any organization that owns, operates, maintains, or runs a certain type of physical asset, whether they're pipes, whether they're lighting columns, whether they're road network, rail network, pylons, etc., etc. Anything like that is, in for the purpose of this presentation, an asset-intensive organization. And I'm a chartered engineer, so I was graduated as a civil engineer from Mumbai University, and then I moved to Birmingham, University of Birmingham in UK, did my master's there in geotechnical engineering, and I designed lots of earthworks, so road extension schemes, elevating congestion by creating roundabouts, designing roundabouts, etc. That was sort of the early first 5 years of my career. And I stumbled upon an opportunity, or I didn't stumble, I really worked hard to pursue my organization to allow me to do a PhD with, and the subject was asset management. It was about resilience in asset management. And I found that subject so fascinating that I decided to move from engineering into the core strategic asset management, where I was fortunate to get to work with Atkins, one of the very good organizations who was pioneering the field of asset management. I also got the opportunity to work with to get introduced to Institution of Asset Management. I started with IAM as a I got a free pass to attend one of the conference as I was a student, and since then I have not left IAM, because I get the opportunity to listen to presentations, and last year I was a keynote speaker there. If I just say this, I feel awfully proud, not just obviously for myself, but also for the entire fraternity, which welcomed its arms to a young graduate, somebody trying to get into the field of asset management, and seeing their journey through to be able to guide infrastructure organization and have the network with peers to share good practice. Today's presentation is me sharing my experience on what asset management journey has been when we talk about transformation. What does it mean? Obviously, I'm bringing to life an example of national highways and showing and demonstrating some of the good work that the organization did, and what were the key ingredients they had, what were the key critical success factors they used to drive asset management from the front. So that's sort of the theme for the presentation today. So with that, yes, thank you. So next slide is, and like I said, the presentation will cover, some, I'll start with some success factors as an overarching message of what I've observed in different organizations who are driving asset management. What was common between those organizations, how they described what a mature asset management organization is. And I speak obviously from my experience in UK, but I'm sure in different countries, you will see similarities. And from your own experience, some of it will resonate with you. And then I'll bring to life some examples of national highways, as I said. As obviously in the flow, I might even bring to life some examples of Birmingham City Council, or an example of Network Rail, or so on and so forth. And at the end, I will summarize with key 5 takeaway messages, hopefully that you will resonate with. You may even be able to go and bring that to life back at your own workplace, and share some of your own anecdotes with me in the question and answer round. Okay, fantastic. So let's get going. So the first thing is key success factors for an effective asset management organization. What are they? So if you go to the next slide, I've summarized them into 5 key points. A good and effective asset management organizations have something in common. Firstly, they have a common understanding of what asset management means to them. And you might think, isn't that obvious? And it is, but it's not very common. So many times I've seen this in organizations where asset management means different things to different people. They may say that they all mean the same thing, but actually, when you uncover the rationale behind it, they have a different priority. They mean different things. They're driving certain other agendas as well. So we'll come to that in a bit. The second thing that effective asset management organizations require is recognizing and being able to measure the benefits that comes with good asset management. And that is not saying we've got a strategy, we've got a vision, we've got a strategic asset management plan that we developed 5 years ago. That's not it. It's not a tick box exercise. It's something you can actively, measure. There is a thing that very commonly said in the UK. I'm sure you hear it and say it as well. What gets measured gets done. So even from an asset management point of view, perhaps identifying what value does it bring to our customers, to our stakeholders, to our leaders, to our shareholders, whatever that might be, and being able to measure and then say, because we are doing good asset management, we can see an improvement in the performance. We can realize the benefits we set out on this journey. And then suddenly asset management becomes business as usual. Suddenly, there is a drive that comes to do the right thing because it drives the right behaviors, because it measures the right benefits, and because we can communicate those benefits to our shareholders, stakeholders, customers, whatever that may be. The third point, and I think this is really, really important, and I've seen a lot of organizations, if I may say, have false start because they have not got this right. What is that common direction of travel? So many times I've heard organizations say, we want to be ISO 55001 certified. That's our end game. And you almost want to ask, but why? What exactly is it? What is the driver? They absolutely the great thing. You want to go down the mid ISO certificate. Fantastic. But why? What is the underlying reason? So why is you've selected this direction of travel? Or I've seen organizations say, we don't want to get ISO certified. It's not about getting a big certificate. It's actually about driving the right behavior in our people. It's about getting our data right, or it's about getting our culture right. And this is where I feel that articulating that direction of travel to say, we are here in this year, we want to be here in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, whatever that might be, and defining that roadmap is extremely important. More importantly, to have the same roadmap for everybody in the organization so that we are all going towards a common North Star and not five different priorities being thrown at our staff, at our teams, at our leaders from every angle because we haven't got that one clear North Star. Fourth, and of course, I know that each one of you will say, well, isn't that the most important? So I have not put these in any order of priority. But yes, having strong leadership, clear leadership, and ownership is super important. So you can have, obviously, it's like the captain of the ship saying, we're going to go in that direction. For doing this, this is the mandate I'm putting together in the organization. And the core ownership sits with each one of us, whether it is the C-suite, whether it is the asset management team, whether it is our operations. Actually, it's not them or them, it's all of us together. What I call, and the phrase I use very often now in Birmingham City Council, I'm sure it's used in many organizations, collective ownership. So it is not just the responsibility and the accountability of the asset management team that sits in an organization of 5,000, 50,000, however big. It's actually everyone's ownership. What are we doing to achieve the asset management goal that we have set out, as I said in the point above, when we set out our journey, our direction of travel? And having that clarity of the vision and the goal communicated to everybody. So what's the point if I know what we want to do? I'm the leader of the organization, but none of my staff knows, none of my team knows, none of my leadership team knows. Then that is almost setting ourselves to failure, right? So having good leadership, having collective ownership, and having that clarity of where we are going, why we are doing it, how we are going to measure our benefits is quite super important. And last but by no means the least, accepting that asset management is a journey. So it is not going, it's not going to happen overnight. But B, more important, that it is not a destination. Just because we've achieved a certain maturity, now our job is done, we can forget about it and then go back to doing all the things we used to do, in the old ways or in the previous ways of working. That's not the end game. It is a continuous improvement journey and not a destination. So this is sort of the key summary. I mean, this is sort of how I've set out my presentation to bring some of this to life. Okay. All right, let's move on to the first bit, developing a common understanding and language. Let's see what the next slide says. Right, now this is something quite interesting. When I speak to many organizations, and I'm obviously, I've seen this in National Highways when we set out on the journey, but I've seen it in every several organizations. when we talk to the asset management team and we say, what's your interpretation of asset management? And we get a fantastic, shiny looking document that says, here's our vision, here's our asset management policy, here's the strategy. Fantastic. And when you go and talk to the operations team, the operators, they might say, it's all about getting the right data. So on the right side of this slide, you will see that I have written what I remember as some of the terms used: strategic asset management, investment planning, investment led asset management, predictive asset management, where we want to start to see what artificial intelligence and machine learning can do to inform our asset management choices, intelligence led asset management, whole life asset management. And believe me, none of this is wrong. All of it is true. But what you can start to observe is that everybody has a different definition of what asset management means to them. And therefore, it's natural as humans that you are likely to be inclined to put your priorities in that direction. Now, imagine for an organization that's large scale, if everybody is putting their priorities in different directions, you're collectively not going to achieve the goal as rapidly as you would want, and there will be wastage. So, first thing is creating that common language and taxonomy was crucial. When I found in these organizations, my question was, right, if we know we want to improve on this journey, if we know what good looks like, fantastic. Second, let's all say the same language. Let's use the same taxonomy so we don't interchange them and don't get confused. More importantly, how do we then communicate it to all of our team so that they use it consistently? And believe me, this is one of the things that is often, thought, oh, we'll do that later. That's where we got to do it from the start. Okay. Second thing is that sense of purpose. A lot of times asset management starts to become, if I may say, point solutions. We'll fix that and we'll do the data and we'll fix the system and we'll do that new process. And somehow all of this will come together and we will achieve the vision or the goal we set out to be do. Well, I think the sense of purpose is that we all do asset management. It is core to our business, for instance, and individually we all have a role to play. Maybe there is a part of the business that's setting the investment for the next period. Great. There's a part of us that's setting the strategy. There's a part of us that's doing the operations. There's a part of our business that's doing the maintenance. But individually, none of us are doing complete asset management, but collectively we are doing end-to-end asset management. So creating that sense of purpose is super important. Then I also saw this was very common, and I've seen this in particularly in national highways, particularly in national rail. I'm sure even in the ports I've seen some of this work. That asset management benefits are often confused with efficiency benefits. Don't get me wrong, they are interrelated, but they are mutually exclusive. For instance, asset management is doing the right things, and efficiency led approach are doing them well. So what I mean is, you've heard the phrase lean, the lean approach, the Six Sigma approach. Those things are driven towards driving efficiency. So delivering efficient things, doing them well. But you might have all the wrong things. You're just doing all the wrong things very well. Now that's not asset management. So getting to know both. These are the things we're doing because they are the right things to do. And now we're going to do them very, very well. We're going to make things efficient. We're going to make them lean. We're going to make them our processes clear. We're going to remove waste. Absolutely. They are interrelated, but shouldn't be mixed and used interchangeably. Um, Now, this one is the next bullet is again very exciting. I've heard asset management a lot of times where when I start talking, I get the impression that actually the focus has become about improving the condition of the asset. I believe that we have now, as a fraternity and as a profession, as a discipline, actually that's the word, we've matured over the last decades to now start to evolve and start to say, actually, yes, managing the condition, correct. But asset management is beyond that. It's not just about improving the condition of the asset. It's actually starting to link how the condition of the asset, how our decisions is influencing the customer outcomes. So managing the service and delivering the service we require or we intend to deliver, the service we promise our customers we'll deliver, or our shareholders or our stakeholders. So I believe that responsibility sits with every one of us, from our leaders to our teams to everybody who is an asset manager or an asset management enthusiast. We got to start to make that paradigm shift to say, asset management is not just about managing the condition of the asset. It is absolutely, it is strongly underpinned by engineering principles. Don't get me wrong, but it's then connecting it, moving further and seeing how asset management helps us deliver the service we want to, we aim to, or we strive to do as an organization. And therefore, almost as Dr. Neville said at the start, almost as we were having a bit of a chat, that it's all about writing clear guidance. We were talking about BIM, but simply put, around asset management, around the vision, around the goals, around the benefits I said earlier. What is the guidance for the organization? Where does that consistency come from? And for National Highways, it was impressive to see how strong the leadership was to drive the priority about asset management, to drive the message that this is about consistent ways of working. And for that, what sort of guidance we are going to give. So I'm sure other organizations have got some equally great examples, but this is the one that I particularly really enjoyed developing, and also saw it with my own eyes, the power of strong leadership, and that clarity that we need everyone to have a common definition, a common understanding of asset management, and here's our consistent guidance. And that was ultimately supported with a common narrative, a consistent narrative, strong communications, being able to talk to everyone in the organization around it. So not just from the CEO, obviously starting when championed by the CEO, I mean led by the CEO, the executive team, the directors, as well as every team member would understand that for us, this is the journey. For us, this is the roadmap. And that's what asset management means. Of course, bringing them along during the development of the work as well. Okay, the next bit is about the characteristics of what good mature asset management organizations look. And like I believe there is, as I said earlier, it's not a destination, it's a journey. So during the journey, you could be anywhere in terms of the maturity. But these are some of the salient points of what a mature asset management organization looks like. So like I said, it's an organization that makes collective decisions about the asset. So it's not just about focusing on getting the data. It's not just about improving the condition. It's truly about the, as they say, that the triangle of balancing cost, risk, and performance. So it is that, but everyone has a role to play in it. And focus on, by doing this balance, what is the service we are going to get? And every time we change the levers of cost, risk, and balance on performance, how does it impact our customers? How does it impact our service? So it's constantly keeping that balance and seeing how one or the other can affect, should it be varied, should it change. And then I need to zoom in, sorry, has a documented and understood operating model. Now, you may have heard of the phrase operating model a lot. I hear it more than I imagine in UK about the organization's operating model, the directorate's operating model. Very recently, in my current experience, I'm speaking about it a lot more for the directorate when I talk about their governance, when I talk about their performance. So what is the organization's operating model? It means what are we doing in terms of our system, our people, our processes, and we look at it holistically. What services do we want to offer? What sort of governance we want to set? For a mature asset management organization, they see the asset management also embedded and through the operating model lens. So it's not about dividing and creating point solutions. We fixed a little bit of data, we fixed a little bit of process, we fixed a little bit of strategy, but collectively we haven't seen it, within the periphery of how does this sit in the organization's op model context. Okay. And obviously, you've heard of this many times. A mature organization has an enterprise asset management system, which is, in this, I mean the system as in the IT system, the architecture that supports the data, the processes in a way that, there is no duplication of data, there are no gaps, there is reliable data that helps deliver the vision of asset management, that helps deliver, the processes. There is automation, of course. All of those things are definitely add-ons, and definitely important from an efficiency point of view as well as reliability point of view. There's another thing I've observed. Mature asset management organizations are often able to benchmark themselves. And like I said, it's not about being perfect. It's not about we wanted to be green in every aspect, in a red, amber, green. We want to be green in everything. That's not the aim of the game. The aim is we are here in our maturity and we want to benchmark with other organizations of our size, of our scale, of our challenges, with the same funding envelope as us. Could be anything. How can we do better? What are the areas of improvement we need to do? Or we are satisfied that in these areas we are going to be a certain maturity. In some other areas, we are satisfied to be, of a different maturity. Because ultimately, it's not about being a golden, having a golden standard. It's about making sure that we have affordability matching with our funding. We have affordability. We have the right, asset management processes, and we are effective in delivering the service we set out to do. And last but not least, again, is the capacity and capability to think different, to think innovatively. Of course, innovation, research, and sustainability are at the heart now of asset management. Many in the UK, I have seen this, that now asset management and sustainability are almost seen together. There are lots of opportunities and projects where sustainability is embedded within asset management. So, for instance, conversations around whole life cycle um, asset management is now also looking at what does it mean in terms of whole life value of asset management. So not just the monetary side, but actually even carbon side of the business, carbon side of the operations, etc. Um, and then therefore proactively thinking, so what comes next? Can we do something different? Can we do predictive approach? Can we think of AI in terms of asset management? Can we start thinking forward about, we were talking about new assets built right now. What can we do right now to make our efficient operations effective and efficient, safe as well? And of course, on the right side, I've written about the outcomes. That so what? What makes a mature asset management, and therefore how do they benefit? What outcomes does it give them? Because it's about collective decision making. You've got everyone's buy-in, you've got everyone's support, you've got everyone pulling in the same direction. So you can genuinely make long-term decision. Do you know how? One of the things I've observed in, again, organizations, that sometimes the departments are different. The department that does the operations, inspection, and maintenance is different from the departments that's doing the new construction. Now, when they work together, when they work collaboratively, they're able to truly make whole life cost decisions. So it's not here's the best project or the best road construction or the best product because it's the lowest cost, because it's very good quality. It's actually looking at it end to end from the time of its commissioning till the time of its disposal, truly designing something, co-designing it, co-creating it so that it gives the right customer service at the lowest cost or at the effective cost and drives the performance it set out to be. I'll give a few examples of where this has gone right or wrong if it comes up in question and answers. And of course, other benefits. I won't go through everything in a detail, but some of the other outcomes it drives is that it drives efficiency, as I said, because everybody is doing certain things in a standardized manner. It drives efficiency, and therefore it reduces duplication, especially when you talk about data, especially when you talk about processes, and then the room for error is less. So you have fewer false start and so on. No doubt, we talk about continuous improvement all the time within our asset management fraternity, and it is the journey. So you're obviously going to learn, you're obviously going to improve your processes, your system, etc. Brilliant. And like I said, the last bullet is key now, that it's to bring that shift, that ultimately the so what. How does this affect my customer? Is this process doing something more better for my customer? Am I able to provide a better service for our customer? And so on. Always thinking about the outcome from the customer service perspective. Okay, I can't see the slides, Meet. So I don't know if you've stopped sharing or do you want to try again?
Just give me a moment.
Yeah. But it's a great time to have a pause, because so far the first three slides I talked about was what I've observed is generic across asset intensive organizations, whether it is, as I talked about the outcomes, I talked about the key critical factors, maturity. Now I'm going to talk about the examples I promised you, picking national highways as a case study.
Okay. Slides are visible, right?
Not to me, but if others are, then
I can see it actually. Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Are you not joined by Teams on your phone? You should be able to see the slides also.
I have. That's okay.
You
I
can't
can plow along. I do have the slides next to me in a different
Okay,
form.
this is the National Highways case study slide 10.
Yeah. So if you go
I'll
to the
give the
next
slide number if it helps. Yeah.
Yeah. Slide number 11. If you go to slide 11. If you go to the next slide 11, just tell me when you've got them.
Yes, I'm on slide 11.
Okay, one moment. I'll just go back to it. One moment.
Should I reshare again so that you can share? Should we try that once or is it fine?
It's okay. Otherwise, I have got it open with me. So you're on slide one.
Or else, Dr. Janvi,
Right.
try sharing from your side.
No worry. I think it will cause more. I am on the next slide. So national
Okay.
highways, you're on slide number 11 now, yeah?
Even yeah.
Okay, fine. So this is an overview of the organization because some of you may not have heard of it. Some of you may have even worked for national highways in different ways. But I thought I'll give a bit of an overview. So that is the government-owned organization, and it, as I said, it maintains, it operates, and enhances England's strategic road network, meaning the motorway. The national, it's also national highways. I think in India it's also called national highways. So it looks after the strategic road network and A roads. So it provides safe, reliable service to customer, and in doing that, 4 million journeys are done daily on the strategic road network. It represents only 2% of England's road network because a lot of other roads are local road network. They are covered and they're owned, operated by local governments and combined authorities. So having, even if it's only 2% of the overall country's road network, it carries roughly 1/3 of the motorway vehicles. So you can imagine from the point of view that the amount of customers it is serving. So it's just to give you a bit of a context. And there's some few statistics for you to look at and digest. So if we go to the next slide, in the next slide, I'm talking about some of the overall organizational context. You've all heard and seen the IM, 6 box model. Now it's gone beyond that, I know. But the organizational context is right at the top in that, and it's such an important thing. So the stakeholders and license. So National Highways has a license requirement to deliver as effective asset management, and therefore it's quite integral to everything the organization does. And DFT is a single shareholder for NH. They are the organization that gives the funding. Okay, to the organization to do both the new construction, new roads, new as well as enhancements, as well as renewals and operations. So all of that. Um, some of the statistics are maybe a bit old, a bit outdated because they have just got the road period 3 starting from next year. So some of this may be slightly a few old, but just take this, just get a feel for it, feel for the size and scale of the organization and the kind of funding they have and the kind of metrics they measure themselves against. ORR acts as a monitor. So it's like a regulator for national highways, but it's not a regulated organization. It's a monitored. It's monitored by this organization called the Office of Rail and Road, and they are responsible to ensure that the organization meets the license requirements, and they are also delivering on their performance targets. So there's a very good, a very close interrelation and working relation between ORR, Department of Transport, and National Highways. It's quite hands-on in that sense. So obviously, because asset management is a part of the license, it is not an alien concept in the organization. It was quite good to see that everybody was, had the general awareness as a minimum about what asset management means, how they've been on the journey, several journeys, in fact, and where they want to be. Everybody was quite infused with the concept. And so on and so forth. So they were always aligned to the principles of ISO 55K. The organization is keen and always been keen to be, adhering to the principles of ISO. So again, those things were quite almost intuitive for the organization, very much intrinsic to the way they operate. Okay, now the next slide, slide number 13, which talks about the approach to asset management. This is bringing to life the example I said earlier about the 5 success factors, that what this organization did. So they set out the vision very clearly of what asset management means to them as a business, so that when they have multiple, I told you about different interpretations, all right, but they are not the same. So the organization, because of strong leadership, because of that clarity, because of the championing for asset management, they defined and they articulated that asset management is core to our business. And I think there's a very powerful statement there to say it's fundamental to what we do. And it also connected it to the service they provide in terms of the operations, the maintenance, and enhancing the road network. Some of it, obviously, if you Google it, you will be able to see it in the public domain. Some of the terms may have changed slightly, but the sentiment is still the same. So I'm trying to bring the essence out of how they championed asset management by communicating their vision and articulating it and writing it down. And then they also articulated that in their strategy, in the approach, and how that was interrelated and interconnected to the net zero strategy as well, the digital strategy, customer strategy, and so on. So it was quite, a collaborative effort. And you can see that they are interrelated and not disparate documents. There is a theme that shows how asset management is strategies connected with all of the other strategies as well. And they also articulated why is it important to us. So why should we, why should we go down this route? So because the organization is an asset intensive organization, and where service to the customers is at the heart of what they do. So the organization connected asset management is about delivering a service to the customers, and they are on that journey where they're making that connection much stronger. Um, and they talk about the obviously to become a mature asset management organization, some of the things that was openly said, very clearly said, is that we want to talk about having a single asset management approach. We want to have that one common North Star. They also talked about controls like processes, different articulating and documenting those processes, about being more effective in the way we operate, the way we maintain, the way we do asset management, and how do we drive efficiency as well. And ultimately, we also recognize as an organization, how can we measure the benefits of doing the same. Okay, so it set itself out on a transformation approach. It's moved away from simply doing point solutions and actually embrace the opportunity to look at this in entirety, from the processes, from the systems, from the data, and so on and so forth. And the next slide will show you that. So how they started on this journey. Slide number 15. I think I'm conscious of time, so I'll give a few examples, and I want to open the floor for question answer as well. So they started their journey by setting out their current maturity. So when they looked at some of their improvement activities in flight, they did a diagnostic using GFMAM as an example. That was the platform, the framework they used. They compared with other examples of other industry, what other organizations are doing. They also looked at their own RACI. We'll talk about it in Q&A if you have questions on that, and so on. And they also then compared their own performance outcomes over the last 2 RIS periods, which is the road investment period. Once they identified their own capability, they then identified the organization. So what are the areas of gaps? Where are the areas of gaps? And where do they actually want to actively invest and improve? Which is slide 16. And on the basis of that, they created a roadmap. And I think this was the key part. And I was absolutely grateful for the opportunity to be and start to define that direction of travel with the organization, defining the roadmap of where we want to be in year 1, year 2, year 3, and up to 5 years. That was the window we adopted. Understanding our current maturity, defining the requirements we need to set out, so we can define, we can achieve the end state which we have set out to do. I want to take you to the slide number 18, particularly because that sets out how we did. This was the more detailed stuff, so we go in from the, what I call the high level, bird's eye, to a bit of detail. All of this documentation was then put together into a catalog. What I call, this was a V diagram. We used to call it V diagram. And it's based on a manufacturing, you may have heard this, design on the left side and delivery on the right side. So defining the what, the vision and the approach was set out in the asset management policy, strategy. And then we also wrote specific asset by asset strategies. I'm sure your organizations have got something similar, or you may have seen it somewhere else. But this was really useful because for those who were practicing and focusing on structures and bridges, it defined what does it mean to me? What does this asset management strategy mean for my bridges? Okay, more specifically, what does it mean for my post-tension bridges? Okay, more importantly, what does it mean for my inspections? How are we managing our inspections? And then our practitioners, what we call our design engineers, our operations teams, our experts who were building the assets, said to us, yeah, but I want more hands-on experience. So we created the handbook, which is at the bottom of that V diagram. Clear, specific handbook, having the processes of how we inspect, how we maintain, how we operate, what do we do. Of course, they were super aligned with the DMRB, which is the design standards. So it didn't want to duplicate it, but it wanted to provide that additional practical guidance. There were 6 or 8 key asset types, and those 6 handbooks were created. Now, on the back of that, the delivery is then having to work to how does this help support the development of investment strategy? How does this help in terms of creating clear asset lifecycle plans? It all started to get the line of sight. Okay, so this was the what I meant to say, the practical things that came out of that transformation program, that improvement journey, tangible things that people can use in their day-to-day work. And therefore, the last slide number 19, summarizes my presentation today in terms of, so what were the key takeaway messages from my experience? obviously from National Highways, but generally across all the organizations. That asset management is an end-to-end activity. It doesn't begin with new construction and it doesn't finish with disposal. It's something that goes round as an end-to-end process. Just fixing one part of the approach isn't going to give us the outcomes of good asset management. We need to do it collectively, end-to-end. And getting that single view and a common understanding of what it means for us is just the starting point, but a very important starting point. Second, it's not just about fixing the data or fixing the tools or getting and buying the most amazing system on the market. It is that, but not just that. It is about having the right processes that support it, clarity of roles and responsibilities, who's doing what, where does the accountabilities lie, is equally and super important. And like I said, the entire organization has a role to play in it, and transforming that mindset from managing the condition to managing the service. Last two are super important. A programmatic approach, because I personally believe that this creates a much more structured approach when we can focus on the programmatic way of working, focusing on the improvement, measuring the benefits, and not just fixing 10-point solutions or 50-point solutions, seeing the bigger picture and pulling it together. And last but not the least in any way is getting that buy-in and that leadership from the top that endorses and champions asset management is so important, because it is the single most important thing, along with other things, that will really make it stick. Because of that leadership, because of the championing from the top and everybody's support and communications, this is where asset management sticks. Any improvement will stick and it will not change in a few years time. It is what everybody will embrace. So I'll pause here and I open the floor to question and answers.
Thank you, Dr. Janvi, for that very illuminative and informative presentation. You covered some of the very, very good points, some of the key fundamentals for a successful asset management organization. And you're clearly very passionate about it, as you said, and that actually comes through your talk. Thank you for that. And yes, so we are happy to take questions. So if people have any questions, you can raise your hands. Just introduce you briefly yourself and then ask the question. Come out of mute first if you have a question. While you're thinking about it, maybe I could start by asking a question. Dr. Janvi, obviously, you have just moved on recently from National Highways. Could you just summarize where they are currently on their asset management journey and in terms of the level of maturity overall, and or have they achieved certification or not? I know they have been working on it for some time. Yes.
Yes. Is it okay if we stop recording so the question answer I can be more free and
Yes.
explain?
Good point. Good point. Good point. Yes. Let's stop the recording. Yes.
Okay. Let me know when it's